Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Alien vs. Predator Galaxy podcast. This is regular host Aaron Percival.
And this is co-host Adam Zeller.
And happy Alien Day 2021, everybody. As always, we tend to record these a little bit in advance, so we don't know whatever other special stuff's going on. We don't know if Fireteam's been massively spoiled for us yet, or we've had a demo or anything yet. But here's our little advanced treat for you guys and girls out there. So like we like to, we've been and tracked down some people that have a huge stamp on the Alien franchise, and it is none other than Studio ADI's Alec Gillis and Tom Woodruff. Welcome to the show, gentlemen.
Greetings.
Thanks for coming.
Thank you. Thanks for having us here, especially today.
Of all days. The Alien Holy Day, 426. So, obviously, we had Alec on in the past, so it took a few years to get him to be comfortable enough to come back and, be subjected to these nerdy-ass questions that we always have for these super incredible people that get to make these franchises that Adam and I spend time just nerding the hell out about details. And we're going to be testing your guys' memory, so I do apologize in advance for that. I went crazy on the Alien 3 related stuff as to, do you remember this? What about this kind of things? But we'll see how we get on with that one.
Well, that's scary. You could have asked us some of those questions like 3 months after we finished Alien 3 and still would not be able to recall.
We probably have better memories now than we did right after that experience. I want to take a moment to thank Adam for wearing that fantastic.
Oh, yeah. And thank you again for gifting it to me when I visited the first time a few years ago.
Aaron, you don't have one, I guess, huh?
No. I'm stuck on this crappy little island called England. Well, Great Britain, whatever.
Listen, Tom and I we are Anglophiles. We have had such phenomenal experiences working our craft in England, and the crews there and the talent that's there is unbelievable.
This one, we're going to start off, and this one's addressed to Tom because Alec's already been subjected to these on his last appearance. So one of the traditions that we have on the show when we have new guests on is to ask them about the first time they ever experienced the franchises that we're going to be talking about. Now, you pair obviously have a really, really extensive history with the franchise, so it goes back quite a bit. So, when we had Alec on the show, he told us about watching Aliens with Jim Cameron, and he worked on Predator. So, Tom, do you remember the first time you came across Alien or you came across Predator? Can you top that? Did you go see Alien with Sigourney? Can you do that good?
No, this was so many years. This was very early in our relationship. Me and Sigourney, so we weren't going public with it. I just did. No, my story is rather charming because it's embarrassing and self-deprecating. But a friend of mine had an older brother, was in college, and I was still or I think I just started. Whatever. He said, "We've got to go see this movie that opens this afternoon. It's called Alien," and somehow, just because of the way he described it, and the fact that I had just read about this other movie called Dark Star, which was, was that Carpenter's?
Yeah,
right,
Carpenter's.
Yeah. So somehow I had in my mind, okay, we'll go have some fun, see this goofy movie, and then suddenly, within a minute after the opening credits, I realized, well, I'm not in that movie, and that was like a horrific movie, in a good way. A horrific movie to sit through. I recommend anytime you go see a scary movie, picture a stupid movie first. With all due respect to John Carpenter, but that was
Dark Star was brilliant.
It was excellent.
It's super charming.
What about Predator? Did you get your hands in on that one, or was that one you watched sort of after the fact?
Predator, I did a little bit of work at Stan Winston's shop. And most of then they went down to Mexico, and Alec, neither of us went down to Mexico to be on set, and we decided to stay back we had the option to stay back and keep Stan's shop open, which meant turning it into sets for a short film that we were making with his permission, of course. So yeah, that's what I chose instead of being on the set for a groundbreaking creature character movie like Predator. Alec and I were trying to get our own thing going.
Well, it led to something as well.
It led to these first two great questions.
So, Tom, another long-running argument on our message boards revolves around the alien skull, the human skull, sorry, in H.R. Giger's original Alien design, and whether or not you're a fan of it. Now, we know Alec isn't Team Skull, but Tom, what's your stance on that? Well,
it's funny. In the way that you see it in the film, you see it so little of it. When you see it, it's cool. I love the idea of layering, translucent layers of things. If I had the option, Cameron had us go away from that look. The alien.
Didn't you sculpt the head? And I think there's some dimples on there, subtly disguised. That looks like some disguised eye sockets to me.
Yes, you're right, and that's because James Cameron wanted to get rid of the shell. He wanted to see all the relief of the alien head and a bone ridge down the center, and I believe that was all because of the way he was planning to shoot. He didn't want a big shiny plastic or shiny smooth shell over top of everything. So I did. You're right. I did leave there. I left the temple kind of shape in there, but then smoothed off the entire front of the face. And that was under his direction. But there was something. The only thing that I would have a question about it is why is it a human skull? It'd be cool if it was something a little less human, a little more alien. If we were going to show it,
I think it's the macabre sort of aspect of it being a genuine skull in there when Giger was making it. I think that's kind of one of the appealing things about it as well.
You mean because it's a real human skull?
Yeah. Yeah.
Is that true? I mean, you guys know better than the last thing I heard was when David Fincher went over to Switzerland to see Giger at the beginning of Alien 3, and Alec, didn't he say that Giger has his first wife's skeleton?
That was his claim, that it was the skeleton of his wife. I don't know how you would possibly get that.
So where did the second skull come from?
And real quick, the Chet skull in AVPR, was that something that you guys wanted to try, or was that at the direction of the Strauss brothers?
I think that was us. I think that was us saying, it has taken on aspects of its host, right? It grew inside a predator, and predators have eyes, and you could make the same argument for why the alien, grew in John Hurt. So why isn't it a chain smoker? But and partly it's like, well, if you're going to do that, let's commit to a more clear dome so that you really can see it, right? In the first film, what was kind of cool was I don't think I was even aware that there was a skull inside it in the first film after production pictures started coming out. So it was kind of just a vague hint. So for me, I don't consider the design of the first head to even have those eye sockets on it. It's just that.
Yeah, it was so subtle. You don't even really see it.
Yeah. So for purposes of the film itself, it's like they're not there. But after the fact, it's interesting, of course. And you can't argue with H.R. Giger's, his look and the visual language that he used, because he's H.R. Giger and it's phenomenal. And so I don't. When I say I'm not team eye socket, I feel like it's just if you have what was so cool about that alien, one of the many things is that it apparently did not have eyes. So how is it finding you? And yet it can still find you and kill you and all that. That made it a little more implacable, which I think is a great thing about that. I'm looking at the head of the PredAlien right now, and we wanted to to give it a little bit of that to just bring it into the Predator world.
And sorry, I couldn't quite hear you there. What did you say you were looking at?
The head of the PredAlien, it's very heavy.
Oh, gotcha.
Let me see if I keep asking Tom questions because I know we're on a schedule.
I think this question is let's see, is more for Tom. 'Cause in the earlier script for Alien.
Anybody.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Oh, there's chat.
Whoops. See what happened?
They're fighting again.
There you go.
That is one of my favorite design aspects of chat.
Yeah, that is really cool. And those cool prop ones are really nice.
Yeah, I think this is the master for the Sideshow Collectibles one.
Oh.
I believe, unless I'm wrong.
So continuing on with aliens, in the earlier script for Aliens, a new type of worker alien was introduced. It was a smaller white creature that tended to the Queen, but it ultimately never appeared in the movie. Do you remember if there was any design work actually done on this creature?
Those drones, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
I never saw anything, Tom. I know it was discussed, but I feel like we read about it, but it was dumped pretty quickly, probably because of budget.
Yeah. I don't remember seeing any designs or anything other than just some talk about it early in the production, in the pre-production, which was our build time.
I thought that would probably be the case.
It would have been a Jim Cameron drawing anyway.
Yeah, because he did a lot of conceptual stuff himself too.
Yeah, I don't think.
Here's the other thing: no matter how bad your memory, you never forget a James Cameron drawing.
And as we all know, you both worked on Aliens Understand prior to forming ADI and basically becoming the Alien FX guys. So naturally, we have to make sure we ask you both about your time on Aliens. Tom, I think you were largely responsible for one of the earliest creature effects runtime-wise in Aliens, and that was Ripley's Chestburster Nightmare. Could you tell us a little bit about that one?
Yeah, that was, you're right. That's the first thing that shows up in the film. And I remember, let's see. It's funny, I had to do a torso casting of Sigourney, and Stan took me over to the dressing room to do that with him, and it's funny because I don't remember Stan doing a lot of hands-on work on Aliens because he's the designer and he's running the whole thing. But for some reason he was involved in doing that body cast of Sigourney Weaver, so that must have been an important one on his list. So we just did it, and we just did this shell, and it was this kind of very simple trick where she's lying on a slant board, so her head is up like this, and her arms are up like this, and we put the torso over her, and it was open. The torso is open at the bottom, so I could put the puppet in underneath and come up through a hole inside, and I just remember it was a strange place to be introduced to Sigourney Weaver at. Because she's laying in this thing with her legs on either side of the slant board, and then I push down inside, and I have to reach up inside, and I'm trying to puppeteer this thing. And we're in between takes, and Jim Cameron says, "Have you met Sigourney yet?"
Nice to meet you. Yeah.
So yes, that was my indoctrination into the effects of Aliens.
You were both involved in filming the scene in which Bishop's torso splatters to the floor after the Queen rips him apart. And I believe it was one of the more interesting effects that the both of you actually worked on in Aliens. So, how much fun did you have lobbing Lance Hendrickson around the set?
It wasn't that much fun. It was fun building the stuff. But when you're on set with Cameron, and you've spent, a couple of months building stuff, and you're proud of what you've done, and, the cosmetics are just right of it. And then he takes it and says, "No, God damn it, like this," and face plants it into the floor. And I don't even think the camera was running. I think it was just him demonstrating how he wanted us to toss this Bishop dummy. But it was a great lesson. It was a great lesson in you can't become too precious about your work or too attached to it, because after all, it does have to function on a set and be part of a movie. If you like build something that's so delicate, or that you just want it to be nice and pristine after your day of shooting, why? I mean, you should beat the crap out of it so that it looks dynamic and that it looks great on film. But I think the first take, I sort of was like, 1, 2, 3. It's like, no, like this. But it was fine. I mean, other than we've told those stories before of, I think we ran out of milk and yogurt products that we had in a ice chest at some point, because we were just shooting so much and so much was spewing all over the place, that I ran and grabbed a milk bottle off the tea trolley. But by this point, tea was long done, and so was the milk. And Lance came back the next day, and he was, buddy, I was up all night puking. And because it was spoiled. And then we had to dress him in this crispy. We didn't want to wash the costume. He was wearing the upper half of the costume, but it had been soaked with all the milk products. And he said, nah, it's better to just leave it for continuity's sake, right? We'll just put it. So he had to put this thing on that smelled sour and terrible.
Oh, man.
Like, Lance, I'm so sorry. And he said, I'll use it, buddy. Don't worry.
Now, it's interesting in the behind-the-scenes stuff, like how in Alien and Alien 3, when you guys did it, like you used real animal guts for the ox, right? Like, does that still happen in the industry, or is it all?
No, and we were wrong to have done it then.
Oh,
no. Wait, did we use? We did have. Look, there was this thing about this. Look, everybody was going on about the first Alien and how inside the alien egg there was this. Queen Anne's lace, I think it was called. It was some kind of
Nottingham's lace.
A what?
Nottingham lace.
Nottingham lace. So that's an actual meat product, right? It's a tissue.
Or it was.
And it was, right? And we were trying to find a way to come up with something that was artificial. And I can't remember. The ox was built. It was all synthetic hair and everything, and we had a bunch of guts. Alec, did we have real guts on the stage, on the set, the abattoir set for that?
Yes, we had. Because we were going to shoot for a few days, right? We had to get these intestines, and we just decided let's just have a refrigerator. It was outside the workshop for that period of time, and the shooting went on much longer than we thought. So that meant that every day a guy from the abattoir would come and put a new set of the intestines in the freezer for us, and it would just sit there and we would go get it. And sometimes it would be kind of frozen and we had to pull it out. But it was not good. That's old school stuff where you use the entrails and just you got to have gloves on. You got to make sure nobody rubs their face with this stuff, because you can get very sick from that. And it just, as the day would go on, I think we'd replace it a couple of times during the day. So there was a lot of this stuff, and I can tell you it was awful.
Makes for some good stories, though, I guess.
that was awkward, Alex.
Aaron would get it.
The English still use that term. We don't so much. But
Okay.
thank you.
Oh, we were talking before you arrived about how squeamish I am.
See, the American-
I see what you did there. It took
The American just got it, and that's because we don't use that word.
No, we don't use that word very often.
Alec, you were talking about being precious about your props and your effects and stuff on set, and obviously over time things like, I mean, have you seen pictures of the original suit, the state that's in now? Yeah. With the latex degrading over time, yeah. Is there any sort of conscious effort, on your guys' part to kind of preserve the work that you do? Because you have things like the statues and stuff made rather than the original suits on show and display.
And the answer, the reason for that obviously is because if we make, they're often made out of combination of fiberglass and urethane and pretty permanent materials, because we want them to be permanent, and we pull them out of the original mold so they look exactly the same. The number of people from the crew are still with us at the shop, so they're painted by the same people. So they're absolutely perfect replicas. Meanwhile, the suits, you're right, the suits do rot, and they don't rot in the same way. I think Alien 3 suits went pretty quickly. In fact, by the end of the movie, when we got back to the States, we only had one Alien 3 creature suit left, I believe. Is that right, Alec? Just one?
I recall, yeah.
And then Alien Resurrection, those lasted a little bit longer, but so many things happened to them on set. The slime that we use has some kind of trace amounts of a solvent in it, because wherever it laid on the suit overnight, leaving it for continuity, that part of the suit has degraded. It gets hard and crumbly. It turns to dust. It just whatever latex is in there vulcanizes. So, I have seen suits from Aliens that survived, that collectors have given them a lot of love and put them on mannequins. And I think the reason those survived is because all of the sculpted bones and everything, those were all done with polyurethane foams. So they were already not a natural product. So they didn't degrade that much.
And I guess there wasn't as much to those suits anyway, was there? With the
there was very little. It really was a spandex bodysuit with a dozen foam pieces glued on and painted and done in such a way that they could be minimalistic. So it was all about movement for these guys that were inside the suits, and not so much how it looks in the light of day.
And as far as like the sideshow and the cool prop stuff, are you guys involved to a degree, just like making sure that they're faithfully keeping your designs when they make their products?
Yeah, we have been, particularly sideshow and also cool props. We'll provide the masters that are right out of the mold, so that they can, we'll repose them or what have you, so that they can remold them for their production runs, and then we will also do a paint master for them to match. But Cool Props has done some of their own sculptures. And some of them are pretty good. I think the Cool Props, there's a lot of nice stuff out there. I shouldn't say some. There's a lot of really nice collectible pieces out there. Sometimes I have to look like there's so many dog aliens that have been done. I'm looking at pictures going, is that one of the ones that we made, or did somebody sculpt that to match? And there's some really good. And then it's also interesting to see how people interpret the design as well. Like we're very familiar with the sculpture of the miniature, for instance, and then you'll see someone who has sculpted a beautiful version of it, but you go, oh, look at how they interpreted that detail as being something that goes in instead of coming out, or look at how slender the hip joint is. So it's because it's an interpretation. It's very interesting, but that's what led us to create our own art pieces from these. We did that. We got the license through Fox and did a bunch of our own pieces, so that something out there would actually be 100% authentic from the molds that we used in the film, from the studio from ADI that created them originally, and that we would have some number of people who actually worked on the actual pieces.
Yeah, that Studio ADI shop, I picked up a couple of those myself. I got that swimming alien sculpture as well as the Alien 3 logo embryo piece. I was curious though, I know your shop's been down for a little bit. Are you guys planning on bringing that back, or?
Not right now. The license has lapsed. But the thing is that we, people are used to prices of collectibles that come from places like China, and the hourly rate in China is very, very low. So you have to be in the frame of mind to say that, well, this is not a collectible, it's an art piece, and it's coming from the artists who actually made it for the film, and that's why it's 3 to 4 times more expensive than what you can get through, Cool Props or Sideshow. And you just have to, and both are valid, right? Like I feel bad that we can't sell a big, Queen Alien head, quarter scale. I feel bad we can't sell that for $1,200, but there are options for people who want that, even though they can't get the exact same thing that we are creating. They could get it from another source. So, but I don't think that we'll bring it back because it is very costly for us to do those things. They sold all right, but then you're into all the shipping stuff, and then it gets damaged in shipping, and then you're kind of becoming Amazon as opposed to an iStudio.
Gotcha.
But it was fun. It was a nice way to connect with fans, and we're grateful for the people who invested in them, and in a way, it makes them even more special if we don't do them.
And if I remember my timelines rightly, as ADI, you were attached to Alien 3 from a relatively early stage when Vincent Ward was still on the project. Were you actively designing anything with Vincent?
No, he had his art department, and they were churning out general thematic things like the planet itself that was built out of wood, and I think there was some costume stuff, stuff that usually comes out pretty early in pre-production, in as much to get the studio excited to say, oh yeah, I see this movie happening. Let's go ahead and greenlight it. But as far as the creature stuff, I don't think we got into any of that at all. I remember this was back when Alec and I would do our own drawings. This was a whole different world where we could sit down and do sketches that presented the concept of what was going to be different about the alien or any of the effects that are in it. But they didn't have to be photorealistic. This was before Photoshop. It was before any kind of digital manipulation. It was just pencil on paper. I remember being at the shop, having a phone conference call with the producers, with Gordon Carroll and Alec and I, and then he said, "Well, I think we're going to go forward, but we're going to go with a different director." And I went home that night and I sat down. I just drew a picture of what Bishop looks like, which is basically how he was left from the last movie, and now he's wrapped up in plastic. And there was nothing, honestly, there was nothing special about it other than to say, okay, yeah, here's an image of what is going to be a character in the film. So that's changed quite a bit, but yeah, long way of saying no. None of that happened before. We didn't really get involved until after Fincher was on.
Gotcha.
So the appearance of the eggs and the facehugger in the opening credits of Alien 3 has always been a point of conversation when it comes to the fans. Now, if I remember correctly, the addition of the egg was actually a later thing following test screenings. And we only see the one egg on screen, but the call sheets actually mentioned two. Was that just an extra in case of accidents, or do you recall if it was intended that we see the multiple eggs on screen to account for the multiple, embryos?
Are you sure we only see one on screen?
Yes, just the one stuck next to the Sulaco Island. Yeah.
The one that's open. Because I felt like, I think we made 2 or 3, but I felt like when we dressed those in, we had a closed one and an open. But I can't, honestly, Alien 3 has got so many versions of the film, that I mix them up, and then you get your memory of what you shot, and that might not be what's in the film either. So I defer to you, but maybe it was just the one, so that you could just say it was a single facehugger that carried the embryo, right?
Okay.
And one of the things we're curious about are the facehuggers in Alien 3. It was originally supposed to be a brand new facehugger, the super facehugger. We've seen photos of it and some footage of it made it into the assembly cut of the film. But how far did you go into that effect? Did you have a mechanical version? Did you know if there was more footage of it shot that ended up in the assembly cut?
The only shot we made a dead prop version basically, but the only shot of it is a guy standing next to the dead ox saying "we'll cease" or whatever, and it's just holding the thing. It's in kind of a wide shot, and I think that's in a director's cut.
That's in the assembly cut, yeah.
But we never made mechanical versions of it because we did make a mechanical facehugger for the revised opening that you mentioned.
So was that made specifically for the reshoots then? Was that not something you had? already.
No, actually, we did do that because, what's the deal there? Because Steve Norrington mechanized that.
That's right.
And it was a nice little finger mechanism. So we were going to use a traditional facehugger at some point, weren't we?
Yeah, and I'm trying to remember. She just asked you guys, what did we do? How did you get a call sheet?
Well, that didn't come from us. One of the other sites actually got hold of.
It's funny.
One of the guys who was involved in the reshoots as documentation.
That's cool. It's funny.
From what I remember, that we always had the cracked cryo tube with dead newt in it, right? And then we had the cryo tube that's in the film with the fingers, reaching up, coming towards it, like girl sleeping, facehugger creeping, and what? Oh, but there were two facehuggers, right? Because Sigourney carries. Yeah, it's a mislead because you think it's going for newts, but it actually implants in Sigourney, and it's the embryo of the queen.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know why in England. Yeah, there must have been a need for a traditional facehugger as well as the queen super facehugger. I don't know, guys. It's a call sheet.
When talking about Alien 3, Michael Biehn has mentioned that he heard about a puppet that depicted him being chest bursted. I know that was depicted in one of the rewrites, but I've never actually seen mention of the puppet. Did you get as far as actually building that?
Yeah, it wasn't a puppet in that it didn't move. It was just a replica of him being, kind of his cryo chamber is broken open and a big I-beam has come down basically and just destroyed his head, and his hands are kind of up like this, and there's just all this horrible meat and that was one of the other few drawings that I did in terms of just to be able to show to Fincher, say, look, this is what we think happens to Michael Biehn. He says, sure, great, and then that was all sculpted as just a full on polyfoam replica. But for me, it went back to when I was early years in college. I was working part time as a stringer for the local news channel, and the guy that had been doing it before handed over a 16 millimeter camera, and he said, here, you write to the studio, they'll send you film. And I remember one morning, I got a call that there had been a train accident. Two trains had collided about 45 minutes away, and it was snowing, it was wintry, and I remember driving out just to get a couple of shots for the news. And what I didn't shoot was the first time I had ever seen a dead body, and that's basically what from the neck up what this guy had looked like, and I sort of conjured that up again in my mind while it was being designed and sculpted. So it actually exists, but again, now, is there a version out there where it's in the film?
But you see that kind of one, yeah. But that, I think that was always more very, that was the ironic safety beam, death, rather than this chest burster death that Michael Biehn thought he was fated to have. So was it always it was always out from the
it was always because of the crash of the ship, and it had nothing to do with him being violated by a face hugger.
But it did have something to do with his objections to them using his likeness. So we did get the word from production. We got to show Hicks dead in the cryo chamber, but we cannot see his face. They had the rights to use a photograph, I believe, of him. And then Tom raised his hand and said, "Hey, you guys, I used to be a stringer, and I saw a dead guy." Now, Tom was very excited about that, but yeah, that was a cool, okay, we're here to, you guys, I don't know whether it's ethical or legal for you to use Michael Biehn's likeness, but that was the solution, and I think Tom was the one that suggested we just, I beam right through his head.
I think that one's only in the assembly core.
But that's interesting that the question, as you put it, was there a puppet, like a puppet Michael Biehn? Is that what you're asking?
I think that those was his words. I think Michael's.
So that's interesting how these communication things go, because read a script or somebody, got them a script or whatever, and maybe there was something, but people always use the term puppet, like, well, no, it's not a puppet, it's a dead body, and is it a replica of you, or is it, so there's all like nuances that get missed when people are really, upset that the directors decided to kill beloved characters from the previous film. How do you guys feel about that? Do you wish?
I love it.
I mean, there is something to be said for the real dark tone that Alien 3 goes for, which I'm sure was really jarring for audiences, coming off the high of Aliens and going into that initially in theaters, like, oh my God. But I feel like, especially with the assembly cut, Alien 3's status has definitely been elevated.
Mm-hmm.
In the 26th of January 1991 draft of Alien 3, there was a scene in which a fetal queen crawled out of Newt's mouth and then into Ripley's mouth on the EEV. It ended up being depicted in the comic adaptation, but there isn't any version of the film. Did you ever build a fetal queen, and were these scenes ever shot?
Nothing was built. So nothing was shot of a. I remember there was talk, right, of seeing it come out of her mouth, but it never, for us, it never went beyond the talking stage.
We complained about that, actually, because we were going like, what the hell is a facehugger crawling in and out of people's mouths for? Like, is this just a writer who is disinterested in or are we trying to say something different about the life cycle of the creature that a facehugger crawls in and out of your mouth? I don't know. But the fetal queen embryo, as it is in the film, is in the scans. The scan sequence.
So on the topic of the fetal queen and the queen chest bursters, one of the really fun things about this hobby is researching for articles and videos and interviews, and coming across these nuggets that don't really get spoken about that often. So last year I did a piece on the deleted hive sequence from Alien 3, and I came across some really interesting bits that I hadn't heard about before, and one that really surprised me, Alec, was you saying that the addition of the queen chest burster was something that sort of came a bit late to you, and you had to quickly then add a crest to the existing chest burster sort of designs and models that you already had. Was that in reference more to the reshot sequence at the end where it bursts out of Ripley as she's falling, or was that about the one in the scan in the chest cavity?
It sounds a little like I was lying. No, I don't know what I was referring to in that particular article, but let's see, maybe the addition of the chest burster coming out of Sigourney was it was definitely shot in Los Angeles. So maybe that, like, the thing when she's in mid-fall and it comes out and she grabs it. We were testing that, though, in London, weren't we, Tom?
Mm-hmm.
Really wearing the thing. So, no, I take that back. It was just stuff that didn't get shot, I guess. So we always knew then that the chest burster would come out and she would hold it. I don't think that it was particularly last-minute desperation or me heroically adding a crown to something else, because there were sculptures that were dedicated sculptures to those things. I did sculpt the queen chest burster that she holds onto, and I don't know. It does feel like you have to understand that when the production shut down, we ended up gaining a whole bunch of time on the build. When it shut down, they were rewriting even before principal happened. But we weren't able to really work on a lot of the alien stuff. We were able to work on dead bodies and put fingerprints on dead hands and things that would never show. So it might have felt like some of the creature stuff was comparatively rushed. But it sounds like I was just trying to make myself look.
Would you ever say, if you had any Alien film where it hasn't been sort of like problematic or rushed or anything? I mean, AvP was was really short for you, and then Resurrection was even shorter. Alien 3's a historical train wreck. I mean, how did like Resurrection or the Predator go in terms of the creature work? Were they actually not, not a race to the finish line kind of thing for you?
You mean when we added the Predator with AvP movies? Is that what you said?
Just like how intense the pre-production process was. Like, did you always feel really short on time before, like, to get everything ready for filming?
I just want to say I'm still in my mind. I'm still riffing off the fact that you guys had a call sheet, and then when Aaron says, "Now on December 12th, 1990," and I hear his voice, not so much you, Adam. I hear Aaron's voice, and I suddenly picture a powdered wig and black robes, and I just feel like I did something really wrong, didn't I?
You're about to go to the gallows, sir. Be careful.
Yes. Historically, look, this is the big difference between working on a studio movie and working on a small independent movie. And the studio movie is going to require so many pre-production hoops. I'm not being sarcastic, so many pre-production soups that you have to get through it and accomplish in their order, which doesn't really take into account that we have to get you're going to start shooting on this date. And especially now with CG movies, we're going to finish shooting on this date, and then we're going to do all the post-production. But we have to build everything back here. And back here on the big studio movies, well, they haven't really released any cash yet, and our build schedule just gets shorter and shorter on all of them. It's I don't know that we've ever had. I don't think there is such a thing as a comfortable build schedule. At least we haven't had them, because to me, then surprise, maybe the studio's right. If it's a comfortable build schedule, then it's a lazy build schedule, because but we're really just you just hit the ground running, and you never stop until you're done shooting, and then you go on to a podcast, and your whole life crumbles.
Yeah, sometimes you do your best work under pressure, I guess.
Well, that's what they say, isn't it? Artists strive under pressure.
It's very true. It's very
so
true.
they say.
I love that other quote. I can't remember who said it, but that a work of art is never finished; it's merely abandoned. So you always fill
I remember that quote
with more detail and more noodling and all that stuff. So it's, in a way, having those parameters is a godsend, because you have to finish it, guaranteed.
I think it was Da Vinci. Maybe I'm wrong with that. I think maybe.
So again, talking about that hive sequence, we know you guys started building cocoons for the sequence, and that Fincher had you finish one for his own purposes, the thinking shell, I think he called it. But we've never seen pictures of the completed cocoons, and I always thought that they looked like they were taking more, from the work in progress stuff that you guys have shot, have shown. I always thought it looked like you were taking inspiration from the original egg morphing scene from Alien rather than Aliens as hive. Was that the direction you've been going in?
Yeah, this is funny.
Alec, don't say anything. Don't say anything.
I can see Tom's.
I'm shutting. Where's my turn off, Mike?
So first of all, Tom totally made up the Fincher thinking thing.
So
Tom
what? Made up the what?
You remember that, Tom? There was a period there where we were having such a great time with David Fincher because it was, fun. We're all about the same age and all that kind of stuff. And then we thought it would be funny if we made stuff up.
Oh, yes. Yeah.
When we did interviews, and then he would read it later and go, "What the hell?" So Tom had a few good ones.
Yeah, it was like, early interviews. We said, "Yeah, David Fincher is a funny guy. He would direct, but he would direct from sitting up in his chair wearing a cowboy hat. He wouldn't take the cowboy hat off ever."
Tom told somebody, Cinefantastique or somebody, that we made David Fincher an alien suit, and he would direct in an alien suit with a cowboy hat on. And then the thinking shell. Come to think of it, Tom, I think I was just laughing while you were doing all this stuff. The thinking was we made him a cocoon, and he sat in this cocoon. But the truth is, none of the cocoons ever even got molded. We did sculpt them in clay, but we never got to the point of molding them. And yes, you are correct, Aaron. We did we were looking more at the kind of stuff that was going on in the deleted scenes of Alien than maybe some of the other early ones.
It was Tom. You lying such and such. I'm going to go get my white wig and my gavel, and I'll be right back.
You guys, this is a scoop. This is the first. No one has ever busted us / Tom on those early. We were actually kind of disappointed that they didn't get noticed more.
Yeah, nobody ran with them.
Is Hollywood that weird that you can make things up like that and it would seem believable?
So
But then
go ahead.
didn't you have a bone to pick with some of the reporters anyway, because they did run with stuff that got you in trouble with like Giga?
Oh, that was just the one. That was would that have been Cinefantastique or I can't even remember the name of the article, but they were sort of a. Was that Cinefantastique?
I remember the Cinefantastique one was after Aliens. We came back, and Rick on the crew answered a bunch of questions that got published before the movie came out, and Gail Hurd was really upset.
Gail Hurd was saying, "Don't talk to Cinefantastique," and then I think it might have been them that on Alien 3 when that came out, we did an article and it was a hatchet job, right? Remember that, Tom? It was like we would say something like, Giger was in Zurich. He didn't want to come to London, and he was submitting designs to David Fincher. And meanwhile, Fincher was asking that we also do designs based on H.R. Giger's work. And it was a nice coincidence and not a big surprise, but the work that Giger was submitting was very similar, coincidentally very similar to what we were doing, because of course it's based on Giger's work anyway, right? From his Necronomicon. So what that article said was, Woodruff and Gillis claim that it's a coincidence that their alien looks like Giger. Like, what?
Just trying to stir drama then.
Yeah, and I think that article kind of fomented some negativity in Giger's mind, because Giger was initially very complimentary of everything that we were doing. Even when the film came out, we didn't talk to him that much. But when the film came out, he complimented us about how great the alien looked. And then after some time went on, he really soured on us, which was too bad. We reached out to him and tried to communicate. We actually, had worked to protect his credit, because we noticed that the credits were going to say Alien, designed by Woodruff and Gillis. We're like, no, that's not the case. These are we are in charge of the alien effects, and we wanted to make sure that Fincher or Giger was protected there. But those kind of things, it was by the time he was already soured on us.
There was another similar situation which might have been in Cinefantastique, where we were talking about how we sculpted the alien to look like what was in Giger's Necronomicon book, and particularly when it came to painting it, we said, let's paint it. Let's use this palette, all these soft, warm brown colors. And I think in the interview it was, we wanted to make our alien, the alien on screen, look more like Giger's original work than what he did on the first movie. Because there's quite a few subtle differences. And somehow that got retranslated as Woodruff and Gillis wanted to make something better than what Giger did. That's what they got. That's what they gleaned.
Yeah, they basically, there was a sort of a movement for a while there that was Woodruff and Gillis are arrogant upstarts who think they're better than Giger, and we would see that, in early chat rooms when the internet was taking off, and it came a lot from England, I must say. Here it is. This is the article I had taken. This is the writer's name is Tim Prokop, and as I recall, the article itself wasn't that bad. It was the little headlines and shit that they pulled out that kind of, made you think that we were. If you didn't really read the article, you wouldn't really think. But yeah, I was going to do a post about this, and I just decided why. We have such tremendous respect for Giger, and what we always thought of our role in this was as caretakers of his design. We thought that we were disappointed on Aliens that Cameron didn't bring Giger in, and as it turned out, Cameron was fully capable. Between him and Stan, they were fully capable of doing phenomenal and respectful alien work. But it was very different. Those suits looked very different. But that's the cool thing about the xenomorph, is that it does change. So there's room for that kind of thing. But yeah, so we were a little saddened when it went sour on with our relationship with Giger. But what can you do?
Yeah. Out of curiosity. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Alec.
I was just going to say, I think, part of it is that, Giger established the language. He was the pioneer. He was the genius and the revolutionary fine artist, right? And we are creature designers and creature builders, commercial artists for motion pictures. And so we are probably come at it in a different way than a little less of a sexy way, perhaps, than a lot of fans want it to be. Like Giger really literally was the dark genius, right? And we are not that personality type. So we probably, to some people at that time, particularly having been a new company, people didn't really know who we were and thought we were posers and imposters and all that. And in fact, we did lie to interviewers. We've established that, Your Honor.
Now I'm kind of worried about the accuracy of the questions in this.
No, it's fun. Actually, this is a lot of fun for me. The dispelling this stuff is nobody's ever asked us this. So good job.
Thank you.
Out of curiosity, though, did you guys ever eventually make it out to the museum in Gruyere?
I never did.
No.
Definitely recommend it.
We actually early on when we were in England on Alien 3, we got a phone call. There were 2 phone calls that came in from Giger. One early on inviting us to go to his studio in Zurich. Zurich, right?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Nearby. And see the model that he'd done a wet clay sculpture, and it was too big for him to get out of his basement or out of his workshop, and he wasn't really prepared to mold it. So he invited us to come over, and then Fox over in London said, nope, you can't. You cannot go over there. You can't go see it and have any time with Giger, which I think was...
They didn't want to pay for it, basically.
Yeah.
They said, we're not...
Was it just the traveling? I thought it was because they just didn't want to have any kind of a connection if Giger was going to start saying that we were ripping him off.
Well, I think what we were asking them to send us, and that we would mold it there. We would come back with a mold, and they said, like, well, what are you going to do with it? Like, is it because it is the design the director really wants? It's in the ballpark, but it's not. We have all the pictures of it we need. We know where to. Can you make a suit out of that thing? And we're like, no, it's kind of like a bas relief sculpture. No, we can't. But we thought it's Giger, and we're being invited. Right? We should do this. And but I think that, to your point, Tom, I think there may have been some behind-the-scenes stuff where there was already a distancing that was happening between Fox and Giger that we were unaware of.
And then there was one day where we're shooting on the stages at Pinewood, and I had to run back to our workshop at Pinewood Studios and grab something. And I just remember, just as I was running in the studio, the phone was ringing. I picked it up, and it was Giger on the phone, and he was asking me how production was going. Oh, it's going well, thank you. He said, "Let me ask you a question." He wanted to know if we knew where his check was, where his checks were. And I said, I don't know. You really need to talk to production. And I gave him the production number for the unit production manager and the name and in number and all of that stuff. So, obviously he was not being well treated. Through whose fault, I don't know. But it was, it's just a really weird call to field.
I think Giger had expectation. He had not at that point worked on a lot of movies. But he did work on Alien, and he had a close relationship with Ridley Scott. And I think that's just what his assumption was. That's how it works, right? But he also was not willing, from what we heard, he was not willing to come to London to work in the shop. So he wanted to stay home in his studio and do everything that he could do, but not come and be part of the actual production. So I think that may have, I'm guessing here, but that may have then put the studio in a position of saying, well, what are we paying for? We have a team here that can create all this stuff. So you're a production designer. You're sending us things that we will decide whether we like them or not, right? And that's not at all how it was with Ridley Scott, and it's not how like us as fans would necessarily have viewed Giger. But I think then he sort of started seeing us as part of this problem, or maybe even that. I believe there's a quote in some magazine where he said, "I believe that Misters Woodruff and Gillis have put a worm in the director's ear," and simply was not the case. We were there to support. And as Tom said, we used his Necronomicon book as our reference. So the thing is just infused with Giger's look. It's not a departure. It wasn't like, it's his. It wouldn't be what it is without his body of work. So anyway, but what can we say? We have tremendous respect for him as an artist, and I can certainly understand how a fine artist would be driven mad by the decisions of the studio.
Just the joys of the miscommunication and that the nightmare that was Alien 3.
And you know what? Here's another thing, though. From our point of view, it wasn't that bad. We always chuckle because there's such a big hype made about what a disastrous production it was. And well, there was a shutdown. They built a bunch of sets, but the sets got used. They rewrote the script. They shouldn't have gone into production with kind of two competing ideas that they were trying to blend in. Yes, absolutely. But from a standpoint of the production, it never felt like, other than the studio having to eat costs, it never really felt. We had a great time and did some work that I think still holds up today. So
you guys probably had the most fun on that set, right? That was the movie's Academy Award nomination, wasn't it? Was the effects?
Is that the only one that it got nominated for?
Did it get any others, Aaron? Do you know?
I don't think there was anything for acting. That was all Aliens, from what I remember.
Right, but I mean, like sound effects, anything else, or
not that I remember, but I don't really remember the awards very well.
Gorgeous sets. Norman Reynolds, another English genius. Yeah, great stuff. Yeah, so we have fond memories, but I can understand where that was in the day. I think ever since Days of Heaven, right? The press has just loved to jump on problem-plagued productions. And I think they generally, despite it being a flawed film and maybe it underperformed because of the expectations, those are conceptual problems that how do you follow a movie like Aliens up with a smaller, darker, more cloistered film? But it was an attempt to get back to what worked in the first film. So you got to give it props for that, I think.
Definitely.
And I don't know. We had a great time, and our crew was just amazing. If you IMDb everybody who's on that crew now and look at their list of accomplishments, how many Oscar winners that crew produced, and Stephen Norrington who went out to direct Blade and League of Extraordinary Gentlemen, and multiple, just tons and tons of talent was in that room on our crew. It was really a fantastic time.
Well, it wasn't your longest running guy on Alien 3 as well? Wasn't Yuri on that?
Yeah. It was very unusual, and there, that's sort of harkens back to that earlier question about, or the earlier answer there that have had comfortable build schedule. I guess this is the one thing that was, it really was long and drawn out.
And we fans love to debate, and this is one debate I'm curious to hear your thoughts on. If you knew of any intention from the actual production, was Bishop 2 an advanced android, or was he actually human?
You mean Lance with the red blood at the end?
Yeah.
Yeah, he was. My recollection was that he was human. That was the whole point of having him get hit and knock his ear off to see red blood. That it wasn't a. You guys still discuss that? Is that right?
Yeah,
it's
that,
still a
that
debate.
goes on forever.
Especially with Lance and AvP, because then it's like, well, is he an ancestor of Bishop 2 if he's a human? Or, I mean, there have been some androids in the lore that have red blood as well, so could he just have been an advanced model that's more disguised? So,
oh, that's interesting. I get it's interesting because it seemed like a. It just seemed it's back in the day. I mean, this was 30 years ago. It just seemed very clear that they would get that, and that was I know there were I don't know how big the comic books were by then at that point, but I have a feeling that a lot of this stuff came up afterwards. Kind of looking back into the past, knowing, oh, hold on, these guys planted this ahead of time. They knew that he was going to be an advanced model and have red blood and everything like that. But no, at the time it was just that he really was the originator of the synthetic and was coming back to try to convince Ripley to give herself up.
I love that there's a question about that. I think that's so fascinating. It just shows you that movies, they have a life of their own that doesn't belong to the creators of the film.
But but that's my point, Alec. There's not a question anymore.
But can we trust that response? Is the
yeah. Well, that's the way David Fincher explained it to me when he was dressed in his alien suit and cowboy hat. So I said, okay.
In his thinking shell.
And in the same vein of the Bishop 2 question, another one of those lingering details that just sets fan imagination alight was the scar on Ripley 7. I don't believe it's a detail that specifically mentioned in any of the scripts, so I was wondering if that was a little touch you guys added and what was the story there?
You're talking about in Resurrection?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
7 being the clone that dies on the table.
Yeah, the one that she uses the flamethrower on.
The scar in her chest where she's had a chest burster removed.
Oh, okay.
Potentially. Well, that's the point. We don't know. It's just one of those details that's on the effect.
Right. So I guess I would ask, and again, we see so many different versions of this, of films that I get like, I don't know if like, did I dream this or is this but so we become even less reliable than you guys. But we did the scene where number 8 is having right. She's got a scar on her chest, doesn't she? Yeah. So she's had an embryo removed from her because they're trying to clone aliens, but they're accidentally keep creating human beings or keep tainting the human host with alien DNA. So why is it a question? Why wouldn't they have removed a chest burster from number 7? What's the debate?
Well, if they managed to get one out of her, what would be the point of number 8? I think is the question. So,
well, it's probably deformed just like she was. It wasn't a proper embryo.
Yeah,
that's fair.
Yeah, I like that. So then the queen that's in that film grew really super fast, right? Oh yeah, they've got an accelerated. That's why the newborn could grow, and it grows in a womb-like. It was supposed to be like that was the human influence, but it's an external egg sac, but also a live birth, right? And she gestates very quickly. Is all that stuff clear in that movie?
I think in general, yes.
Yeah.
When it comes to that kind of stuff.
People always, another thing we get. I saw somebody commented that said Woodruff and Gillis taking shit from fanboys since 1992. But people have complained about the quote unquote beast style of that was established in Resurrection, which, as I understand that term, means that it's got a more organic look. This was another thing people groused about it, that we were being uppity and we thought we were better than Giger, and we were changing the rules of biomechanics or throwing biomechanics out in favor of a softer, squishier look. But it's in the story, it's in the script that these are a cross between humans and aliens. So it has to affect them in some way. And that's what we came up with. And then because of budgetary purposes, we on AvP, we kind of got stuck using those same molds to create our bodies. I think we resculpted the heads and hands maybe, but maybe we didn't resculpt the head.
No, you did the hands for AvP because Anderson wanted them beefier, and then I think the neck and the head for AvPR.
That's right. You're right.
I have a question. What did Alec have for breakfast this morning?
Alec, what did you have for breakfast?
Your Honor, I haven't eaten anything today because I'm intermittent fasting, which is why I'm such a cranky bastard right now. Anyway, those kinds of things. Like I thought, oh, this is great. We've got clones that are humans that have touches of aliens, and then we got aliens that have touches of human in it. But no, the beast. We unleashed the beast.
So one of the design elements of Resurrection's worry that I think sets it apart a lot from the first three as well is the way in which the head sort of tapers off towards the end rather than the more penile look to it. Given Jean-Pierre Jeanette's fondness of the cockroach, I was wondering if that was a deliberate thing to, further evoke the roach.
That flat kind of like a flat belly of a cockroach.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think I feel like that touch came from you, Tom.
Well, yeah, I know there's certain things. It's like again, the joke that I made in some interview. It's like, oh yeah, this is now the alien. This is a new model alien head, and this year it has cup holders. And it was like in an effort to say, as an artist, you don't want to just blindly repeat what was done before. And so we would make changes along the way within the sculpture, and they were never subversive in any way. Aaron, I just heard you say penis and cockroach. I don't, not the same. We would, but if we made an adjustment to a sculpture or added some details or something like that, we never felt challenged enough to show pictures to the director, because once you open that door, you never close it, and we know from experience that you suddenly can't ever get your work done because that becomes a thing where the director wants to, depending on the director, wants to control every little button, every little switch, and it just eats up an enormous amount of time. So I think whatever changes came to the head, I think, Alec, that was ultimately turned over to Jordu, and he came up with a look in a maquette that was really cool, and that's what we ended up going with. So at that point, it went to Jordu Shell for the actual design input for what the head looked like, particularly the back.
Yeah, and we did do some versions, certainly, but that's how it goes. We throw a lot of ideas out there, and then the director gets to pick and choose. So it could be that I know that Jean-Pierre he did reference a cockroach. He liked the colors of the cockroach, and so it could well be that that's why it appealed to him.
Yeah, even if you guys did have to end up going with the same molds for AvP, I gotta say I really did like that design in black. I thought it looked really good. Another piece of the design though that I was curious about was there's like a spike or something in between the dorsal tubes, and it's in your book. It's in your Making of AvP book, but I don't believe the aliens had them in the film.
Yeah, it's the fishbone.
Yeah.
Yeah, it gets in the way of the head when you look up. It's banging into that head, so it was sort of a clip-on thing that we could choose to use or not use. And mostly, I think we didn't use it, at least in AvP, right? I don't think we used it in Resurrection either.
No, it wasn't in Resurrection, but in the start of your Making of AvP book, you see one of the alien suits has it, but I don't believe in the film that they do. I think one of the more intriguing visuals from Resurrection was the Viper Pit. Rather than design and constructing a creature, you were creating a living set for this scene. Was that a particularly challenging effect for you because it was so different to what you normally do?
I don't think I think the challenge was the size of it and making the movements organic. It took a ton of people crawling in under these foam. We did one sculpture, right? And we molded one big, like I think a 8 foot by 8 foot sculpture, and then we tiled it, turned it and tiled it together. So we had a huge, I think 16 by 16 foot area, or maybe it was 8 by 8 area. I don't remember the sizes.
It was bigger. I feel like it was at least 20 feet. And it was longer, I believe. Wait, did the camera spin over?
The camera spun, so it was a square.
Giant square.
And we had to have a slot in the opening that Sigourney could slowly, drop down inside of. And it's all covered with slime, so it was hard to get, when she had to walk out and get into position, she's sliding, the people that are taking her out are sliding. And but the thing that I thought was cool was back in the early 80s, this very famous fashion photographer, Richard Avedon, had done this portrait of Natasha Kinski, lying nude on her side with a boa constrictor wrapped around her to make it, not stark nudity, but to make it, a sensual thing. And I remember thinking that was always a cool look. So I asked Sigourney if she'd be interested in if we had time to do something where we could kind of copy that look, but it's the alien intertwined with the Ripley, and Ripley would be nude and the alien is just covering things up. And she really wanted to go for it. And we decided, well, on this background, this is the place to do it. But production wasn't completely in league with us. And Sigourney wanted it, so the producers. So Fox said, "Yep, you got to screw you producers that are trying to get a movie made. Sigourney wants this. You're going to do it." So Sigourney got a photographer lined up, and I got in the suit, and we did all of that. And I think it was like the next day, Alec and I got called into the producer's office, and this guy, very accomplished producer, Bill Badalato, very accomplished producer, and he said he was just trying to figure out from somebody why things were going so slow. And he's sitting behind this big desk, and he said, I don't know. He said this, what do you call this wacky space woman wants to do a nude photography shot in the middle of trying to make a movie. And I remember sitting there very quiet and thinking, oh God, does he know? But
that you pitched the whole idea.
Yeah, I pitched it, and then I thought, okay, I guess that's what we're going to do next. I never saw the pictures. I don't know how it turned out. They never got released, so maybe it wasn't quite the effect that Sigourney was hoping for.
I was curious about a seemingly deleted scene towards the end of AvP, Alien versus Predator. In the novelization, Grid Alien makes it out of the ice tunnel to the surface with the Queen, and we actually see Grid on the surface in one of the trailers. How significant was Grid's role on the surface before this was cut?
Really? He's on the surface for the trailers?
Yeah, there's a shot where you see him outside in the whaling station.
It's like looking up through the tunnel, and then you see Grid on the surface. It's this very brief shot from one of the early trailers.
And how does Grid die? Does he die? Does he get the back of his head blown off?
The explosion in the movie, the explosion kills one of the other aliens, gets his head blown off, and then the alien is kind of pushed towards Grid and the group of aliens, and that's when Scar and Lex jump on the sled. The explosion happens and kills all the warrior aliens there.
But somehow Scar was, that was a very dense script that had tons and tons of little action stuff and a lot of second unit, third unit, fourth unit, fifth unit stuff going on. So it's possible that we don't remember this because there was so much going on and there was a studio. And it's also possible that they started shooting it and went like, you know what, we've only got 6 days left of shooting. What can we cut? So I don't remember suiting Grid up. I mean, it would have been you, Tom. You were the.
I don't know, guys. Just tell us what you want us to say.
Okay, moving on then, I guess. Until Requiem and since, the aliens have always been depicted with the smooth heads. Was it nice to actually get back to that ridged look when working on Requiem's alien? Especially since you sculpted that, Tom, the original.
I sculpted the one for Aliens, right? And I don't remember if I did Alien 3, but Alien 4 and that was different guy, different sculpture. No, I don't know. It was like I loved the idea that there was a different dome on it, right? Is that what the biggest was that the biggest change for the Alien Warriors in Requiem?
Yeah,
It
it went
was
back to
the
the chest.
chainsaw. Yeah,
no dome at all. It was just
Oh, that's right. It was just a sculpted surface that had some interesting relief and ports in it and bone structure. That's right. That's right.
The Ross brothers loved Aliens. That was the first Alien film they saw. They said that they, when they were little, they were in a hotel, and when their parents would go to dinner, they'd turn on Aliens and watch it over and over and not know that they were getting charged every time, and they got busted on it. But they loved the head that Tom did in Aliens. So that's what they wanted for Requiem.
Yeah, I really do like that design in Requiem, especially the neck. You guys did bring more of the biomechanical details, I think, in the neck of that warrior.
We did. I think that was an Akihito sculpture, the neck, if I'm not wrong. But yeah, we wanted to really get some of that precision back, because there was, it worked for Resurrection, and then as I said, we were stuck with it on AvP, but this allowed us the opportunity to sort of re-art direct, so we're not just doing the same thing every time.
So speaking of brand spanking new things, then, being one of the centerpiece creatures of the film, obviously Requiem's PredAlien went through a lot of design, and the story goes that the finished design was then heavily influenced by the studio and because of the reactions some kid had, and you guys weren't too keen on it. So if you worked on another AvP and were asked to design a new PredAlien, is there any sort of approach that you think that you'd take with the new iteration of the hybrid?
Wow. I think I made the wrong choice to say don't send the questions to me ahead of time. That's short answer is yeah. Artistically, yes. Absolutely would want to do something. It would come down to how much. If you're saying you're saying theoretically we have the freedom to do it. Yes, absolutely. I don't have any specific things that I'd look at. I was never really crazy about the feet on the newborn, but that was partly wanting to make that leg shape that didn't look like a human being. So and people always refer to it as a dog leg, but really what it is the there's a shoulder. I mean, there's a hip, which is like similar to a shoulder. Elbow is the knee. The wrist is the ankle, and then it comes down to the toe pad, and that's where people think it's a backwards jointed leg. But yeah, you can see there's aspects of actually the way Alec is holding is wrestling with it. It's scary. No, I like the weightiness of the chest and the size of the head. There's something when you build that up, it makes the legs seem a lot more slender. But there'd probably be a lot of these details that would be different.
I mean, it's a cool looking thing. I think that thing with with the kid, we had a panicky executive who showed it to a kid, and we were well underway. No, I'm still sculpting, but it's got to look. This kid said it looks like a cool alien, and we're like, it is an alien. And he goes, yeah, but he didn't say predator, right? Well, the idea is that it's 80% alien and 20% predator, whatever. And then we're like, he's saying, yeah, but it should be, 40-60 or whatever. Like, okay, what do you want done, right? And then I think for me, what I can tell you specifically what we changed. It was probably more like an alien, and we added more elements of the predator to it. But like this dome was probably always there. This is meant to reflect kind of the shape of a predator head, right? But then we kind of expanded out that cowl area where the dreadlocks come and push that back here. It was really like, even now when I look at it, I think like, yeah, we were trying to avoid the kind of obvious thing where like stick dreadlocks on an alien, right? And we ended up doing exactly that. So we had some other designs. If you look in our books where we had like quills and stuff, that kind of, we thought those were more interesting. Like, it's not just cut parts of a predator off and stick them on an alien. It's happening at a DNA level where it influences the overall design of the thing. And it's coming out in interesting ways that might be unpredictable or might be a little less on the nose. But that said, it's a pretty good design, and it does work. These put mandibles on an alien. These were the things that we were like when we were reading, like we gotta just not do the obvious, and it ended up maybe being a little more obvious, but also there is what they call the easy get, right? Like this definitely looks like you can see Predator and Alien in it. So in that respect, it's very successful. And we should give a shout out to the artist. Steve Wang was big on this. Steve Wang was a big part of the original Predator. He has a really great style and a very clean kind of sculptural look. He really nails the kind of geegery stuff and all that. If I step back, I sometimes see this thing getting a little bit of criticism when I see pictures of it on set. People will say, "Oh, that's a bad design. It's imbalanced because from the hips up it looks, big, and then it's got those little stubby legs on." And the point of that is that we were building the suit to be used in a film, not to be seen as a maquette or in full body. You would never see the entire thing in full body. You would see cuts of the shots of the feet, walking or whatever, and you see it from the hips up. And yes, the arms were extended, the neck was extended, the head was very large. And it was Tom, on a rostrum so that he was as big or bigger than 7'1" in white. And that's how it was designed to be seen. This maquette, we actually lengthened the legs a little bit more so that, just to make it a little more pleasing for a collectible. But so anyway.
Yeah, I've personally really liked Chet's design. There was a Japanese collectible company that also did a version of that Chet in like black and silver tones that looked cool.
Oh, really?
It does sound cool.
But I like that coloration too.
I mean, Alec, you were saying about being shot from the waist up. Is that not sort of the mentality of pretty much all of the aliens, especially when Tom's in this?
Yes, but I think that we cheated the head just to get the body more elongated to look like it's formidable against a predator. We cheated that neck a little longer, cheated the arms a little longer. Like the original Alien, he didn't really have significantly longer hands, just a big, tall, skinny guy with a big, wingspan. I don't mean just. It was a genius design. I don't mean
Pull quote from this interview.
we'll run with that headline.
Yeah.
So you guys were also heavily discouraging AvPR's PredAlien from taking on too much of the Predator's behavior. I know there were some things filmed with the Predators in the ship being skinned and that it would take the spines and skulls. I think there was a point even in the script where the PredAlien could cloak. So could you tell us a little bit about that? Did you guys push back on like, hey, this should not be acting too much like a Predator?
Boy, I don't remember the cloaking.
I don't remember cloaking either.
Wasn't that in one of the scripts, Aaron?
I think you might be thinking of execs thinking about it, kind of maybe, but I don't think it was written.
I heard that from somewhere.
But then again, we've only seen 2 of the scripts, so I don't.
It's one more than I've seen. There was that scene where the Predator's just walking through the woods and he sees somebody coming and he just goes, the PredAlien goes like that. And he can't cloak because he doesn't have the technology. I don't remember that. I certainly don't remember that at all. But you're right. There was that thing about he skins the body of was it the sheriff? He skins the body, hangs it upside down, doesn't take the skull.
No, that was Wolf. I think Adam's thinking.
Yeah, the Predator bodies in the ship, the Predator ship crew. Yeah. When Wolf goes in and investigates the ship, you see the 2 skinned green Predator bodies hanging upside down.
Right. Yeah. Right. Yeah, I don't know. We pitched a whole kind of, reproductive. We were trying to like pitch this idea that the PredAlien used reproduction as a weapon. And since we don't know anything about predator reproduction, we can, there's leeway there. But we had this idea that it could impregnate you by stinging you with its tail and pumping an embryo into. And we knew that they wanted to do like multiple embryos because they needed to like get aliens out quick, right? Like they did to speed that along so that they could have an infestation right quick. So we thought it'd be cool if it could like spear you, pump you full of embryos, which then are on a hyper fast gestation, and so you sort of blow it up real quickly, and then baby aliens come out of you. And we typed up we submitted a thing, and which is what we do a fair amount of time. We're the creature guys, so we had a Fox exec send us a nasty email saying, "Guys, this is completely inappropriate. Please stop providing."
We'll go with the pregnant women belly bursting instead.
Well, I think probably what he's doing is like, these guys are not in the Writers Guild. We're a studio. We can't be accepting submissions for, some kind of thing like that. Instead of like, well, if we had a meeting, we'd pitch you these ideas in the meeting. But so that was our attempt at input on the gestation.
There's a story that you guys had actually, I think, bid to direct or write the film. Is that just like an extension of that kind of story, or was that some urban myth?
Yeah, not that one. Tom had a cool Alien 5 script.
Alien Salvation,
right? We're still looking forward to that one.
How's that going? Because everybody wants to know how that's going, Tom.
Well, it's just creeping me out that you guys are telling me the name of my secret Alien script.
You told Adam. You told Adam
last time.
Maybe I did. Well, it's going exactly how it was back then. Obviously, because I can't remember a damn thing. I probably had several meetings already that I've missed because I didn't remember them. No, it's tough. I was there was I had an opportunity to write a novelization of the long treatment that I wanted to do, and I thought, well, maybe this would be a good way to see, get it out to the fans and see what the fans think about it. But ultimately, I said, I just don't have. There's so many things going on. I don't have the time to do it. And then all of this COVID thing hit, right? And you're put away. You're there's nothing to do. There's nowhere to go. And I just kept putting it off. I just didn't do it. And now I look back and over the year that I've had, I probably had plenty of time to do it, and I didn't. I just feel like partly it's Alec and I have both been wanting to write, and we have done, Alec has directed a project, I've directed a project, and we want to do that. But the problem is that the level is, if you try to do a studio level thing, they're never going to look at us as writers. They're going to look at us, you're the guys that do the special effects, and all that's great. So it's like you just kind of get tired of hitting your head against the brick wall, and I don't know that anything will happen of it, honestly, but at least, it was nice to sit down and put it all out. My goal was to take all the Alien movies, except for the AvP movies, wrap it all up in one storyline that was kind of cohesive and led to a satisfying ending. But nothing is happening with that.
So when you say sit down and the opportunity to sit down and sort of put it down in novelization form, was that something like off your back, or was the talk with like Titan or something for that? Because I bet they'd be right up for that. They've just they're doing a novel of William Gibson's Alien 3 script.
Oh, no kidding. Okay. Yeah. I don't know. It's just so, it's I think it's so different to write a book than it is to write. I've written lots of scripts and I've studied it. I understand it. Not so with novels, but maybe it's not that different a thing. Maybe it's actually a little more of a flexible structure to write a novel, to kind of focus on different things throughout rather than keep them all in a format of discovery.
Yeah, they did an audio drama of that as well, of Gibson's Alien 3, and they brought back Audible produced it. They brought back Lance Henriksen and Michael Biehn, and it was really interesting. I definitely recommend it.
Wow, that's cool.
So he finally got to play Hicks again. Well, I guess after Colonial Marines.
We don't count Colonial Marines.
That's very cool. That's very cool.
But just to finish on the PredAlien question, so that story about you guys pushing back, like, hey, it shouldn't have these behaviors, that was just a story that.
Well, I mean, I think we I don't remember specifically about the skinning, but we were, you know, you're always concerned about is it supporting the story, or like, is this an alien or is this a predator? And if you align it too much with I mean, it's got to be, it's, you know, it's an alien, right? It's fighting against a predator. If it's acting too much like a predator, it just seemed like it muddied the waters. But I don't remember specifically, you know, what the nuts and bolts of what we objected to or didn't object to. You know, our biggest recommendation was make this film as dark as you possibly can. See any of our work. That's what we wanted.
Yeah, I bet. That sounds like another one of those lies, I think. So, in some ways, you know, it was thanks to Stan Winston's recommendation that ADI became the Caretakers. You know, you guys are the guys after Aliens. So I was curious as to if you and Stan had ever sort of, you know, discussed the work on your films. You know.
Not really. I know Tom and I have different memories of this. On Alien 3, Stan said he would that he would do the film if he could direct it. But they already had Vincent Ward and then, of course, David Fincher. So he knocked himself out of the running, and they came to us. Tom remembers, maybe that I missed something, that Stan referred us. Tom, did Stan refer us after he was told, you're not doing this film?
For Alien 3?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. I do remember him saying something like, "Okay, well, if you're not going to use me, then go see Alec," because that was around this. Oh no, you know, I'm sorry. There were two movies when we broke off. Stan recommended two movies to us that they come to us: Tremors and Death Becomes Her. So it was not an Alien 3 recommendation.
Well, and Stan was in the running to do AvP. He was very. I mean, we love Stan. This is business. What he said to us when we left, he said, "Go with my blessings. I will recommend you for work. Any work I cannot do, I'll recommend you for. Just be aware, I can do it all." And all right, thank you very much, sir. But he would refer us. But the Alien movies are, you know, they're big, prestigious movies. So AvP, his studio was really going to get that movie. And we were competing with our old mentor, which is a funny situation to be in, but he had taught us enough that it was not personal. And we got the show. There was also mention that, I don't know if Stan had said that he wasn't going to be on set that much, or if they just knew it. If they just knew it. But yeah, but then there was that phone call where Paul Anderson called up and said, "Okay, if you're telling me that you two are both going to be on set and Tom's going to wear the alien suit, then you get the show." And that was an easy answer for us, because it's what we both wanted. Yeah, we said we wouldn't do it any other way. Yeah, that's right. It was it was the personal commitment. But yeah. But no, Stan is our mentor in this business. And like I always tell people, he didn't really teach technique, you know, like, you know, use this rubber or this clay sculpting tool. He gave opportunities. He would see people, he would see the value that you brought, and he would dump responsibility on you. And that's how you would grow. And that's how he's the one that teamed Tom and I up together. You know, he saw how well we worked together. And so he would say, "You guys, this is your portion of this film." And he kind of created AVI in that respect. And he said, the things that I value about, I remember on Aliens, I think he said this, the things that I value about you are the things that are going to take you away from it. So he already knew it was sort of in our DNA to not, be there for forever. And I was only there for 2.5 years. How long were you there, Tom?
I was there for just under 5 years.
Yeah, so that blows a lot of people away when they hear that, because there are people who were there who were with Stan. Joey Orozco, who's a phenomenal sculptor, who was one of Stan's longtime sculptors. He was there for 16 years. Isn't that crazy, Tom, to hear that?
Yeah, especially when you look at how it started out when we started out in the early 80s. I mean, none of us had any idea it was going to grow into what it became, throughout the late 80s and early 90s. And it was amazing. It was an amazing birth of art and performance.
Yeah.
Well, go ahead, Aaron.
Is that kind of duration very uncommon then? Is it generally a quick turnaround kind of profession?
Well, freelancing is, because you're on for the run of the show, which might be 3 months or 4 months or 2 weeks or whatever. And most people would like to land at a place for a while so that you could have some stability of income, et cetera. And bigger shops like Stan's or K&B, ABI, we have been able to offer artists decades of employment, a core group of people. And then Tom and I are very proud that we've provided work and incomes and careers for a lot of people over the years, because it's tough to be an artist, it's tough to be a freelance artist, and have things like a house, because it's a really tough profession. So, but Stan was always very big on, stability, and he would take jobs that weren't necessarily profitable just to hold the group together. And Tom and I have done that as well.
There's a lot of, I guess, all the creature studios, they'll hire by job with the freelancers, and you'll get some people that'll just kind of rotate between the different shops. Like Steve Wang, he did AVPR and Alien Resurrection for you guys, but he also did work for Winston and other studios as well, right?
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. Over at Spectral, yeah. So there are people who rotate. And that's a great thing, is like a lot of us who own the shops started at the same time. Like the guys at K&B, Kevin Yeager.
They were Stan's boys as well, weren't they?
Yeah. And it's sort of like there was a group of people that came out of the Rick Baker camp and a group of people that came out of the Stan camp. Tom and I were part of the Stan camp, and then that turned into other shows. And then it's opened up. So that's how the art gets elevated, is that people bring techniques and discoveries to the next place they work, and it's a nice symbiosis, I think.
So from the outside looking in, it seems like the biggest leap that the Aliens took in terms of technology is in the Queen's technical portrayal and how that evolved. She went from 2 guys strapped inside a shell to this giant, full-sized, sophisticated animatronic. How significant do you think the advancements of the practical effects have altered the way that you guys can approach and design and execute, these effects in camera?
I think it provided more longevity for our practical approach to effects. Practical meaning it's there on set, and the reason is because we continue to grow the way we were building monsters. If we had a show that could sustain it, a big show like AvP and Paul Anderson's love of wanting to have a queen there, not rely on a digital queen. I think it all goes back to the early 90s with Jurassic Park, certainly having that blend, Starship Troopers, where we provided the practical effects that blended with all of the Phil Tippett CG stuff. I think that was probably the high point of realizing we were getting so busy because there were so many movies now being greenlit that needed our kind of effects as well as the CGI effects. So I think that prolonged it, because towards the end of the 80s, or the end of the 90s, as CGI was coming up, there were fewer projects until they found out that you can do a blend, and make it work. But ironically, on at the other end, we built this queen and it had all these hydraulic servos and everything was operable by a team of, I think, 8 puppeteers with wireless controls. And then when AvP R came along, we were keen to wanting to duplicate that approach for the newborn. I mean, for the hybrid, because there's only so much you can do as a guy in a suit, right? And Ian is a much taller guy as a Predator, so we got the approval to build the hydraulic puppet of the hybrid, and it could do a lot of stuff. It could turn. Its legs were locked, but the upper body could turn 180 degrees, and the head could whip back and forth, and those big heavy mandibles with silicone skin could open, and the tongue come out, and all this great. Every movement that we really wanted was in this puppet, and we took it up to set, and we ultimately it came down to not being able to use it because we were on the set. It's towards the end of the shoot. Everybody's just going like crazy. They got to get everything done because they're running out of time. They had the rooftop set of the hospital built. It was like the 4 feet off the ground. We had our hydraulic hybrid puppet sitting there. All we needed now was a forklift to pick it up, put it over here on the roof, and then we probably needed about 45 minutes to hook up all the hydraulic hoses. And production said, "How long? 45 minutes?" They said, "Nope, take it out of here," and it never ended up going on film at all. It was just a lot of cuts of me on that platform, raised platform, to bring my height up, over my shoulder onto Ian and blocking my legs so that you couldn't see what was going on.
And Tom, what you mentioned with the combination of practical and other types of effects kind of leads into another question I had. I would say there was a time in the early 2000s where you had a very strong harmony of practical and digital, seen quite prominently in films like AvP, as well as others like Jurassic Park 3, where you had digital and practical effects interacting with each other in the same shots. There was a shift more towards digital for a while, but it seems like that earlier harmony may be returning. In particular, we've seen really strong practical effects and even older techniques like Phil Tippett's Go Motion return in The Mandalorian, along with very new special effects techniques such as the impressive digital sets that they use. Do you see a renaissance of practical effects in today's quickly changing entertainment landscape?
Well, Alec, am I pointing the right? Is Alec on this side of me?
On the side.
Alec. Yeah. Well, I want to see. I want to see it. I want to see it. I'm not ready to retire. I love doing it. I don't know. It's yeah. I don't know.
Is there Go Motion in The Mandalorian?
Yeah, they actually brought Phil Tippett on. I think one of the walkers that's in like the junkyard, they used Go Motion for that, and they use models for the ship flyby shots a lot too.
Do they really?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, that's interesting. Yeah, I think there's a lot of talk about it, which has become maybe a decade ago. It feels like they were talking a lot about it, and we kind of got the feeling on a couple of productions that we were building things just so that they could say we've got practical, right? Like, it's whatever a studio feels will help sell the movie. That's at the studio level, but at the directing level, directors are always very interested in using practical stuff. We never have a problem with a director, rarely with a director having to be convinced to use something real. Because directors want things to look real, and they also want the stuff that they saw when they were kids and that they saw when they were behind the scenes. They want to work with the real practical stuff. But yeah, I think that little baby Yoda has been a great breakout little character and a great sales tool for the practical stuff. And thank God for Werner Herzog, who called them cowards.
Yeah, because they were going to replace the effect. Yeah.
Yes, and he called them cowards. That's some strong old school point of view there. But yeah, I mean, lower budget movies we find are more a better place, or a more do I use the term safe space? They value the practical, I think, more than big budget movies. because they don't have the option of using CGI. CGI is a more expensive technique than practical effects, and they don't, so they can't use it. They just don't have the money for it, and then they embrace it, and they're excited about embracing it. We're having a lot of good time with smaller films lately. So hopefully there's a renaissance. Hopefully people just start realizing that it's a tool, and you have to have a bunch of tools. And there's another aspect that digital artists and companies don't necessarily want to do all of it. They used to, back in the 90s, we used to have this real pervasive kind of aggressive, claiming of every single shot in the film, to bring it in because they needed to justify their overhead or whatever. But nowadays, it seems like digital companies are more interested in breaking things up and having the practical work take some of the load off of them, because they're really under the gun a lot. Most of their work happens in post-production as they're coming racing fast towards a release date. And it's, they want to do a good job. They don't want to have too many shots to overwhelm them and, look crappy, and then have more people say digital looks crappy, which is not really a fair criticism, because it doesn't always, if you're doing it right and funding it properly.
There've been times where we've had the opportunity to provide our work and then digital comes in, and a few times where we would be so severely underfunded, we turn in a budget, this is what we want to build, this is how much it's going to cost, and we've been told, oh, you know what, we want to put more of this money into the digital, so go ahead and build smaller, don't make it do this much, don't have this many things. And it becomes a no-win situation, because then the minute you walk on set, there's that pervasive feeling that because they sort of tied your hands to not build everything that you could build, they're going to replace it anyway. So it doesn't serve anybody's purpose except to convince, in some producers' minds who are already looking in this direction, thinking I don't think practical is. I don't think you can make anything practical that's going to make me believe it. Well, particularly when you've got the budgets the way it was going for a while.
While it was something that Ridley Scott had first thought about while making Alien, it wouldn't really come to be a reality until Alien 3 came around, and that's the notion that the alien is influenced by its host. Now, you guys have been the ones to play with this feature the most, with the dog alien and the PredAlien. But if you personal choice. If you guys were given freedom, is there any particular hybrid, any crazy combination that you guys would most like to have a crack at designing?
It gets back to those toys from the 80s.
Yeah, the kind of
like the bull alien. They had a whole bunch of stuff.
Yeah. We really liked that idea way back when. What is it? It's like giraffe alien. This is where you start thinking, just all that vertebrae on that neck, right? So I don't know. It doesn't hold the same, I guess because it's been done, we've had a chance to do it a bit. It doesn't hold the same interest level to me as it once did.
Fair enough.
I don't know. What do you think, Tom?
I think a car would be the answer. A car that could turn into a robotic monster of sorts. Never been done.
Well, in one of the Alien 3 scripts, I think it was Eric Red's, they actually had a space station transform into an alien.
I never heard that one before.
Yeah, at the very end of it, it was mad.
That's funny, because Fincher had a great idea for the logo, the 20th Century Fox logo at the beginning of the film. On Alien 3, he wanted it to turn into an eager-eyed version of the logo.
That would have been way cool.
I think we bid on it. We bid on creating a sculpture of the 20th Century Fox logo that was all eagery, and they would do, I don't know how they were going to do it back then, rudimentary CGI or some wipes, optical wipes. But they're like, nah, we're not spending the money. But I guess you could do that. You could say that that biomechanical thing is itself a virus or a disease or something. Is that what the Borg are, though? from Star Trek?
I mean, they infect people and it turns them into nanobots, transform them and stuff. But
Anyway,
You have both been involved in creating so many effects for the Alien and Predator films. Is there any specific effect or sequence that you are most proud of accomplishing?
body of work itself is the accomplishment. I don't know, Tom. Remember we were told that we got the job on Thing 2011 because of the fleshy quality of what we did in Alien Resurrection.
That's right. Yeah, that's right.
That was fun on Resurrection to get a chance to like detail out the eggs and do a little bit more with the face huggers leaping and traveling and.
One of my favorites were all those discarded embryos in Resurrection. It was just such freakish looking things, but the idea was in each of them to imbue some kind of humanity in them. It's like even if it was just a human eye, that we didn't want them to look like monsters as much as just these really. You would have this passion for the character of these things, and even though it was very clear that they weren't going to turn out well at all. I thought that was cool. I loved all of this.
Yeah,
I even wanted out. This is something I suggested to Jean-Pierre, and didn't go. But I was, Ripley has that 8 tattooed on her arm, right? And then we see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I was hoping that this was early on. I thought it'd be cool if she kept looking at it as an infinity sign. The 8 on its sign. Infinity, I'm going to last forever. And then when she's in that scene and she turns it like this and realizes she's number 8. I love everything I think about.
Well,
that number 7 clone was a fun one to do, and
yeah,
with an entirely mechanical body and breathing, and she was Sigourney was so game for that. It wouldn't have worked if she hadn't been willing to get on a slant board and spend a few hours going into makeup and have a bunch of puppeteers under her, like Tom was on Aliens. Yeah.
Huh.
Yeah, we go back to Resurrection. That's funny. There's a lot of good work in that movie.
That scene is probably one of the series' best.
Yeah, I agree.
And we didn't want to bring up Alien 5. We know you can't really talk about it in depth. We did notice in the behind-the-scenes footage on The Predator that there was a full-sized alien in the background. Had you also discussed the actual effects work with Blomkamp? Would the film have had Tom in a suit again?
We did talk about the effects work. We were designing. You can go on his Instagram, I believe, and see a picture of the Alien 5 maquette that we did.
Was that a small one though, or was that the giant thing that you see in that scene?
The giant one was just brought to us by Prop Store brought it over. Oh, you know what? Actually, we were using it as reference. It was a fiberglass casting of the original.
Oh, okay.
Right. Okay.
As sculptural reference, just to get, because Neil's deal was he really wanted to get back to the feeling of the '79 Alien, and we were asking like, why aren't you? You're a master of photoreal CGI. Why aren't you doing the CGI? He said because having something real forces you into shooting it in a way that will look like what Ridley Scott did in 1979. That's what he wanted. So there's a guy that is a master of CGI who understands that it is a tool to be used to get certain results, that are right for certain stories. But that's why that was there.
So with Dan Trachtenberg's new Predator film scheduled to start shooting in May and Noah Hawley's Alien TV series announced, can we expect to see ADI involved in either of those?
What does it say when you Google? Does it say that ADI is involved in?
No, it doesn't
say anything.
Oh.
Then we have to agree with that.
Well, that's actually everything from Adam and I. We do have just a handful of questions from community members. So Immortan Jonesy in particular would like to know if you'd have any interest in taking a crack on not a crack on, that's a different connotation over here. I don't know about you guys.
No, it sounds bad.
Okay. Immortan Jonesy would like to know if you have any interest in perhaps having a stab at creating a space jockey animatronic.
Yes. How much money does he have? Yeah, it'd be great. Anything iconic in this whole world of aliens and predators is a really. It's just such a cool thing to be able to look at something that inspired you, 40 years ago, and actually, be able to put your thumbprint on it, particularly with movement and motion and character performance.
Okay. And Sil would like to know if you could go back and replace any effect in one of your movies that you worked on with modern technology, but it still has to be practical. Which effect and why?
That's interesting.
Is it just the Alien Predator movies?
No, go crazy. Go crazy.
Oh my God. I look at shots that from Terminator, from the original Terminator that come out, where I was puppeteering Arnold's head when he was doing the eye operation, and it's all, yeah. It was a rigid, it was a flexible puppet, and I was like down on my knees, and Arnold was reaching around doing, and all this stuff's going on, and you figure, well, your wrist, you can look left and you can look right, but you have to find the right center, which we hadn't done. So it's like I could only lean in one direction, and I had to go anyway. Blah blah blah. It did not look good to me. It's always kind of like stiff, and like you could tell the guy inside was having trouble moving that mass of rubber. Yeah, that does stand. Every time I see it, I go, ooh! But everybody loved it. Everybody loved the movie.
Tom, we're on a list that I see occasionally of the 10 worst practical effects.
And it's the picture of him with that eye operation.
Yeah, but your shot is not number one. That's my shot, which is on this particular list, which is from Jaws 3D, where the sliding towards camera,
breaking the glass.
It breaks through the glass, and it's just So I was in charge of that miniature shark. It was a very early job, and I had a good crew. Dave Nelson, who's an Englishman who was a fantastic animatronics designer who worked on the Talking Bishop. But the thing swam. It looked great, but the story was that they had run out of money, and they didn't have enough money for puppeteers to actually make the shark swim. So it's just kind of doing this, and then it stops at some point. So, but I wouldn't change a thing because I'm number one.
We have another question from Sil. Recently, we were able to get an early script breakdown from AvP, which outlined a lot of effect sequences that never made it into the final film, such as an entirely different opening, but some of which you had done work for, such as the naked sleeping predators. When in the process do you start your design and preparation? Do you work based on a script or a brief, or do you wait until the script breakdowns start? How do you juggle designing elements for an in-progress script while not wasting too much time driving and fabricating things that may not make it to screen?
Wow, Sil is those are good questions. So, yeah, we are presented with a script, and we start. We do our own breakdowns of a list, and we make a proposal. Here's what we build, and we go back and forth. And the VFX folks will come in and go, "Well, we can do this," and then you arrive at that build list through back and forth communication. You bid on that build list, and very often you will start getting paid to design and build, and then the script is continually changing, and you may have to take items out of your list that no longer apply or add new items into the list. So you have to stay flexible that way. And you do try not to burn money. There's usually like a list of things that are going to be in the film. You know there's going to be an alien and a predator, so you're probably safe working on those things, but maybe not a miniature naked predator that has to rise up out of oily substance. But you just, you hit the ground running. I think we only had 3-4 months of prep on AvP. So we had to start building everything, and production takes the risk that a rewrite might end up, we might end up spending money on something that doesn't make the rewrite. So it's a nebulous wool gathering process.
And
You say?
Well, sure. Yeah, it's probably not as chaotic as it sounds. Like I know there was a lot of talk in the trade magazines, papers about Alien 3, the beleaguered Alien 3. They're throwing out another script and they're starting another script and they're trying to start shooting, and there's an aspect of that, a version of that is true. But the real truth is that everything we started building was already locked into wherever the next script was going to be going. So it's never like you get to the point of developing like a full animatronic queen and them not ever using it. You can do that with a hybrid, apparently. So, but that wasn't so much a story or script thing. That was just a cost thing. No, I think the real answer is yes. There's some of that, but it's probably not as chaotic and a crazy waste of money as you might expect just reading the reports.
I think you guys just need to invest in a forklift, I think was the story from the hybrid.
Oh, you mean a big head because it was so heavy?
Yeah. Anyway, sorry.
And Mara Room asks if there is anything that you created that's gone unnoticed by fans and audiences, any detail or plot point that was put into their work that into your work that people either missed, glossed over, or misunderstood.
I'd say all of our effects on The Thing 2011.
Yeah.
Oh,
Alec.
No. Listen, that movie was great. I mean, we loved working on the movie, and the subsequent video that we put out has made a big splash. So there was no downside to that event. But yes, details. I don't know. Goro's dilating eye pupils. Maybe we were the first guys, as far as I know, the first team to make a 1-to-1 human eye with a dilating eye pupil. I know it was done on Jurassic Park with a cantaloupe.
Yeah, but there was something too. There was something too that was happening with Rick Baker and his show, something show he was doing, because somebody came over from Rick Baker's shop and said, "Well, this is how Rick did it." And I remember we called Rick and said, "Hey, do you mind? Can we let this guy go wild and do it?" He said, "Well," he said, I kind of put a lot of money into it and develop it. I'd like to use it first sometime." We said, "Okay," and we came up with a completely different way of doing it. So,
so his eye was not human size, as far as I can remember.
It was what, human size?
His was not, the one that Rick was doing was not human size. We were working in a much smaller.
Yeah. Okay.
I think I could be wrong.
It had something to do with. It had something to do with feather fibers or something. I remember David Kinlan saying that.
Yeah, it was like a brush, if you took a watercolor brush and pushed it against the sphere, it would kind of spread out. It sounded cool.
Yeah.
But I don't know that anybody really notices that or appreciates that about Goro. There's a lot about Goro that people do appreciate, but that did have a kind of a sophisticated eye neck inside it. We used it also on Wolf, on the movie Wolf. But yeah, I don't know. Yeah, there's always stuff we do that doesn't get noticed.
Well, I'm sure in the art and effects world and in the world of fandom, it does.
As long as people sense it, they don't have to actually see it. I'm about to run out of battery.
Well, that is actually everything from us.
That's wonderful.
So before we just sign off, is there anything you guys would like to talk about? Any anecdote or thought that we just haven't given you the opportunity to discuss so far? Or we just nailed it?
Yeah. Could not have gone better, fellas.
Yeah, I think the only thing that could have improved this is if our memories were better.
Fair enough. I mean, I've enjoyed myself, but I'm still
don't-
now doubting everything I ever hear from Tom. But
I don't know who these two. I don't know who this Alec and Tom duo is that you keep talking about, but they sound like they've had a pretty interesting life.
well, it certainly seems it from the outside looking in. That's for sure.
But you wouldn't want to be in here.
But seriously, gentlemen, thank you so much.
Thank you guys, and thank your audience as well.
Yeah,
Thank you
thank
very
you.
much for your time.
Thanks for continuing to promote practical effects, because we need guys like you, guys and gals in your audience, to keep the art alive.
Well, I know fans would not be happy if we start seeing Alien and Predator like movies and shows that don't have them. So,
Agreed.
Right. Well, before we end, we would just like to again thank Tom and Alec for taking the time to come and chat to us. We did keep them a little longer than I think they'd originally intended to stay, but they seem to be enjoying themselves as much as we were, so it was very much appreciated.
yeah, definitely. It's always good to have them on. And we may be doing another interview with Tom in the future, focusing on the suit performance aspect of things. So keep an eye out for that one.
Careful announcing future projects on the YouTube channel. You know what happened last time.
Oh, okay. Well, never mind then.
But I'll leave that one in anyway, just for fun. And if you know, you know. So yeah, thank you everybody who has been watching or listening, depending on your platform of choice, is very much appreciated. And if you do want to reach out to us, let us know what you think of the episodes, let us know what you think of the podcast or stuff in general. You can email us at podcast@AvP Galaxy, or just commenting on wherever you're getting this stuff from, social media, on the boards, on YouTube, whatever. We love to hear back from people about what they like about the show, what they don't like about the show, all that kind of stuff. It's always appreciated, the feedback. Adam, where can people find us?
If you'd like to find our website, it's avpgalaxy.net, and we're also on all the major socials: Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and of course YouTube if you're watching here. If you search AvP Galaxy or Alien vs. Predator Galaxy, you're sure to find us. Also, be sure to check out Studio ADI on their socials as well. I believe they are on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. I'm not sure how active they are on Facebook and Twitter, but I do think Instagram might be a bit more. And I know Tom and Alec also have personal Instagrams where they're more active.
And their YouTube channels have YouTube channel has quite a lot of content, which is really good. It's not just Alien and Predator, of course, because they do a lot more than those things, but there is some great stuff on there. So head on over and check them out.
Also, we're recording this a bit before, but again, happy Alien Day from us. And we hope we're enjoying some new announcements with you all when that day rolls around in just about a little over a week here. Yeah, a little over a week. So
I'm not expecting anything.
Oh, we'll see. We'll see. I
We'll
can always
see. Yeah.
hold out hope.
Indeed. But once again, this has been Corporal Hicks.
And Ridgetop,
Signing off.